Hi, and welcome to our new tutorial series for the Advanced VR Framework 3.0. Most elements have been reworked from the ground up. Therefore, we have decided to create a whole new tutorial series covering the entire framework. So in the first episode, I want to cover the level setup. This part also has been completely reworked since version 2.0, so please try to forget everything you knew from the previous version. So to explain the level structure a bit. Here we see our individual maps, and they are containing different content. And these maps can be either individual or inside a world map. And each of these maps has to be assigned a info level file. So these info level files contain all the necessary information for particular for this level. For example, a level key, data assets, the visuals of the panel, or most importantly, the pawn. Additionally, we have set up an editor widget, which should help us a bit setting up the requirements for our level structure. So let's dive right in and set up our basic level structure. So now that we are in the editor, I would start by creating a new folder, our tutorial folder. This is where all our content goes into. And I will create a folder called maps. And then I'm going to create a new level. Let's take the default level. And now that we have the new level, I can also save that. And I'm going to save that in the new folder that we have here, tutorial maps. I'm going to call that map tutorial 01. We have a little bit more in this level that we want. So we don't want a standard player start. So this is something that we'll definitely have to remove. And the rest we can keep for now, even though they're a bit distracting. I'll push that up here so we don't see it and it doesn't confuse us. So what we have to do is we can use our new editor widget, which is not a requirement. It just helps us illustrate how it works. So you can find that in blueprints and editor scripting, and then you can press right click and run editor utility widget. And this opens up this nice new window here. And it tells us which requirements we need in order for everything to work properly inside a level. So we first need a custom player start. We can simply press on here and it creates on as one. If we want to have multiple ones, then it will also create these. And notice that all of these also have a number, and it has one. It has to have one that is called default. So for example, if we have multiple players in here, if we have a multiplayer session and we have 6 players now, then the 6th player would also be spawned on the default one because we only have 5 player starts, and the first 5 will be filled up, and every additional one will just use the default one. So it's up to you how many player starts you create. If you just create one default player start, every player will spawn in this location, and they will probably overlap a bit. So now that we have our player positions in place, we can also remember that we can place these things ourselves by finding it in the editor under blueprints, navigation, player position. We can just place that in here, and then we have to specify whether it's a default position and the player index itself. I'm going to skip to the BP post process for now, just because it's very fast. This you can simply set by pressing the X. It places a post process actor in the world, and this is necessary for our highlighting. So if you ever find your highlighting not working, it's probably because you forgot to set the post process actor. And next we have to set the level key. So here it's called level key. It should actually be called level info. Don't let yourself get distracted by that. It's still the level info file that we have to create. So for that, I'm going to move in our tutorial folder, and I'm going to create a new file and just call it info. This is just something I do. You can obviously put it somewhere else if you want. And then I'm going to create a blueprint class, and I'm going to search for the level info files. And here we have our structure of level info files. We already have a ton of those in place. That's because we have all the demo content, and remember, each level needs its own level info file in order to work properly, because all the information is set in there. So we're going to create a child of the level info file, and we're going to call that BP level info, and to call that tutorial. Okay, so what I generally like to do is I like to have a two-level hierarchy in here. So I'm going to create another child of that and just call that tutorial level 1. Okay, so this is going to be covering all our levels that we have in our experience. So all our tutorial levels will be using this info file, and specifically every certain level still has its child where we make different changes according to which map it is. And now this level info file we can assign in our editor widget. We can place that, and very important, it has to be placed. That is because the level info file has to be assigned to the level somehow, and that is by placing an actor with the level info file attached in there. And this is basically all we have to place in the level. And now for the final thing, I can close the editor widget, and we can go inside the info level file itself. We can take a look inside our info level file. And the first thing that we have to do is basically set our pawn that we want to use. So in one of the upcoming episodes, we will cover how to set up an individual pawn. But for now, we can just use the standard pawns. And that will be the non-VR normal, for example, and the pawn VR normal. As I mentioned in an upcoming episode, we can create our new pawns in order to make them individual for our different levels. And for a spectator pawn, we'll just take the normal spectator. Perfect. These different elements we will probably cover in different episodes. The panel element hasn't changed much since version 2.0, so I definitely recommend checking one out that we already created for the previous season. And the level key is used mainly for translations. And we will assign a level key here, which we can just think of one, and we will call it tutorial level 1. Perfect. And looking at this will already work. So we can probably play in our map. And we can see that we have a pawn, we can run around, and we spawned where we placed our actor. And this is it for the first part. And now we'll set up a world map just to keep the structure coherent. So to create a world map, I'm simply going to create a new level and call that map tutorial world. And this is supposed to be an empty level. So if you go inside it, we see that there's basically nothing inside. And we can move in the levels tab. And if you don't find it, you can find it under window levels. And what we can do is we can drag our tutorial level in here. Now we can see that we have our tutorial level inside our world map. So our world map can toggle it on and off. So what this basically does is we need a map which is very fast to load. So if we have a level transition from one map to another, we have this fast loading map. And as soon as we are in this map, we are being teleported inside the transition map. And then in this transition map, we have more than enough time to actually load our massive content. So this helps us getting a smooth transition between one level and the other. Okay. So now remember that we can hit play, but since in this current level, there's no level info file. It doesn't associate us with anything, so it doesn't start a spawn, and it doesn't basically do anything. So remember, we always need a level info file to start. So for testing reasons, we can place a level info file into our world map, and this will then help us load the world map that we want. To find a map info file, we can also go into content, blueprints, info, map info, and there we can put in the same level key as for the tutorial level. So now one is inside the world map and one is inside the actual tutorial map. Remember, this is just for demonstration reasons. The world map doesn't technically need a map. Just if we want to start inside our world map, it doesn't get us anywhere. So now that we have the level key assigned, it still won't get us anywhere because it doesn't know which levels to load. And we can look inside our level info file. And if we open that up, we have to specify a world map key and which levels to load. And these we can find very easily. I'll just put that to the right here, put that to the left. And our level that our world map name is we find under maps. That is the one that we just created. I'll simply copy the name here and paste it in here. And the level that it should be loading is our tutorial map. Remember, this is inside of here. So we first load our world map, and then once we're in our world map, we want to have the time to load actually the map, the map tutorial 01 that we have. So I'll copy this name and put it under levels to load. And since we're already in here, we can also specify some information about the transition that we want to have. And if we have a skysphere image, this is going to be displayed in here. Or we can just input a plain color, which is now going to look like this. I think the alpha is not supposed to be 0, so I'll make it 1. Perfect. And now if we play this, yeah, let me quickly make that bigger again. Now if you put play, remember we are starting in the world map at the moment. We see that we have our transition. We immediately go into our transition screen, and we also have a pawn in place that we can use to control. And as soon as the loading has been done, we start in our map, and this is basically all we have to do to get our basic level setup in place. Okay, so this was all on our first episode. I hope you enjoyed it. The whole level setup has made significantly easier. I hope it's very comprehensible how it is now set up. I very much like the change, and I'm looking forward to hearing how you liked it as well.